All right, let's dive in. Today we're tackling a Roman legend, a guy who wasn't just a military mastermind, but also, like, a master of crafting his own image.
You're talking about Scipio Africanus, right?
The one and only. And we're using this awesome biography as our guide, The Life of Scipio Africanus, a tapestry of power and relationships. It's got all the juicy details.
It really digs into how he built this reputation. I mean, think about it. Did this guy really chat with the gods?
That's what they said. And then there's the whole dream of Scipio thing. Was it a genuine prophecy or just some clever PR? We'll get into all that.
Plus, we'll uncover how a seemingly small act of, chivalry actually boosted his rep big time.
And of course, we can't forget the military genius. We're breaking down his leadership style and how his victories totally reshaped Rome.
What's interesting is that Scipio wasn't some nobody who clawed his way to the top. He was born into, the Roman power family.
The Cornelius Scipiones, right?
Exactly. Top-tier Roman nobility. Born in 236 BCE, surrounded by stories of military glory. Imagine the pressure living up to those expectations.
Following in the footsteps of his dad and uncle, both like legendary commanders.
It's like he was destined for greatness from day one. The book mentions he had a traditional Roman education, but also developed this, fascination with Greek culture.
Which was super unusual for Romans at the time.
Totally. It set him apart. Back then, a lot of Romans saw Greek culture as, kind of suspicious, a threat to their values.
But Scipio was different.
He embraced it. This openness actually shaped his whole leadership style. He saw how to blend the best of both worlds.
So we've got this young, noble, disciplined Roman upbringing, but with this Greek intellectual curiosity. And then, boom, Second Punic War explodes. Rome's in chaos. It's 218 BCE. And Scipio, just 18, is right in the thick of it at the Battle of Ticinus.
Yeah, this battle was a turning point, not just for Rome, but for Scipio personally. The book describes it vividly. His dad, the consul, leading the Roman forces, suddenly gets surrounded by Carthaginian cavalry.
The Romans were totally caught off guard. And remember, the consul wasn't just a military leader. He was a symbol of Rome.
Right, losing him would have been devastating.
And what does young Scipio do? Charges straight into the mess, rallies a handful of guys, fights like a madman, and saves his father.
Incredible courage. But it was more than that. It was a defining moment.
It showed what he was made of.
Absolutely. That act, risking his life for his father, it resonated with the Roman people. They saw in him those core Roman values. Courage, loyalty, defying the odds.
It launched him into the spotlight. Everyone knew his name.
But then comes Rome's darkest hour, the Battle of Cannae, 216 BCE. This wasn't just a loss, it was a complete massacre. Up to 70,000 Roman soldiers dead.
Just imagine the shock in Rome. It wasn't just about the numbers. It was a blow to their identity, to their whole idea of themselves.
The impact was huge. Rome, used to winning, was suddenly facing the real possibility of total defeat. Even experienced leaders were shaken. The book mentions rumors of, prominent families ready to flee Rome, terrified of a Carthaginian invasion.
It was a crisis, for sure.
A crisis of confidence. It tested Rome to its core.
And then, our 20-year-old hero steps up.
He does. The book describes him rallying the remaining Roman nobles, making this passionate oath to defend Rome to the death.
He takes this moment of despair and turns it into a rallying cry.
His defiance, his belief in Rome when others were losing faith, that's what cemented his leadership. He refused to accept defeat.
So we got the makings of a legend, noble lineage, battlefield hero, and this unwavering belief in Rome.
But what really sets Scipio apart is how he understood the power of relationships. Building alliances, navigating rivalries, forming these, unlikely friendships.
The life of Scipio Africanus doesn't just tell the story. It dives into the personal dynamics, the behind-the-scenes stuff that shaped his rise.
It's not just military strategy, it's mastering the human side of leadership.
Let's start with his most famous bond, his legendary friendship with Gaius Laelius. I mean, they're like the example of friendship in Roman history.
It was way more than just friendship. Laelius was his confidant, advisor, his right-hand man, a true dynamic duo.
And it wasn't just a wartime thing.
No, their relationship went way deeper. The book highlights that it extended to everything. Laelius led important missions for Scipio, spoke for him in the Senate, even their sons became close.
Wow, their families were intertwined. It was a real bond.
It went beyond politics or personal gain. It speaks to a shared vision, a deep trust that was rare in Roman relationships.
But then you have the classic clash of generations, a clash of ideologies. Scipio versus Fabius Maximus, the delayer.
Oh, yeah. Talk about contrasting approaches. Fabius was a legend in his own right, a master of that attrition warfare. His cautious tactics had saved Rome early in the war against Hannibal.
But by the time Scipio came along, that delay strategy was starting to feel, well, old.
Especially among the younger generation who wanted action.
And Scipio, as we've seen, was all about bold moves. Ambitious, eager to take the fight to the enemy. I can only imagine the tension in the Senate when these two giants of Roman military thinking went head-to-head.
They represented two fundamentally different philosophies of war, two visions for Rome's dominance. Fabius, a product of an earlier era, believed in wearing down the enemy, minimizing risk.
Scipio saw opportunity in taking risks for decisive victories.
It gives you a glimpse into how Rome itself was changing.
Okay, now for a relationship that still blows my mind. Scipio and his nemesis, Hannibal, two of the greatest military minds in history, locked in this epic struggle.
It's shrouded in both rivalry and, surprisingly, respect. Imagine these two brilliant strategists, each studying the other, trying to outmaneuver the other.
The book even mentions that Scipio was almost obsessed with Hannibal's tactics. He analyzed his campaigns, almost like he was trying to get inside his head.
He didn't just want to beat him, he wanted to understand him.
That's crazy.
And it all culminated in the Battle of Zama, 202 BCE. Scipio's victory basically ended the Second Punic War. But even in victory, there's this sense of respect for his opponent.
Didn't Scipio actually defend Hannibal years later when some Romans wanted him extradited?
He did. And some accounts say they even had a final meeting, years after Zama, where they discussed the greatest generals in history.
Wow. What I wouldn't give to have been a fly on the wall for that conversation.
It's a testament to the complexity of their relationship. Adversaries, yes, but maybe also kindred spirits, in a way.
So I've got Laelius, the trusted friend, Fabius, the cautious rival, and Hannibal, the respected enemy. But there's one more relationship that was crucial for Scipio. His alliance with Massinissa, prince of the Numidians.
That was a strategic masterpiece. Massinissa, with his incredible Numidian cavalry, initially fought for Carthage, but Scipio, with his diplomacy and charisma, flipped him to the Roman side.
This wasn't just a temporary alliance, though.
Right. The book emphasizes that there was genuine respect between these two ambitious leaders. They saw a shared vision for North Africa, a future where Rome and Numidia could work together.
Strategically, it was a game changer. The Numidian cavalry, those guys were lightning fast, experts on horseback. They played a huge role in Scipio's victory at Zama.
It wasn't just about brute force. It was about leveraging the strengths of your allies.
So Scipio's success wasn't just about military genius. It was about mastering relationships. He knew that for lasting victory, you need loyal friends, cunning rivals, and even the respect of your enemies.
He was a master networker, a judge of character, and a skilled diplomat. He knew how to persuade.
And as we'll see in the next part of our deep dive, that mastery of people went beyond politics. Scipio understood the power of perception. He didn't just react to the world, he shaped it, creating a legend that would last. So we talked about Scipio's military skills and how good he was at building relationships. But now we're getting into something really interesting, maybe even controversial, his image, the legend he built around himself. It's like he knew that just doing great things wasn't enough. He needed a story, something that would stick with the Roman people.
The life of Scipio Africanus really explores that side of him. It wasn't just PR, it was deeper. Scipio understood that the way people see you can shape events.
So he was like a master myth maker, kind of like a politician creating a brand.
In a way, yeah. But it goes beyond that. One big thing was the idea of divine favor. Scipio cultivated this idea that he was chosen by the gods, that he had this higher purpose, almost like he wasn't just a general, but a divinely appointed hero.
Do you think he actually believed that? Or was it a strategy? It's brilliant either way. Think about the impact on his troops, on the people, if they really thought he was acting for the gods.
Historians have debated that for ages. The source describes him spending hours alone in the temple of Jupiter, especially before big decisions or battles. Some say it was a PR stunt, others say genuine piety. Maybe it was both a deep belief mixed with savvy politics.
Whatever he truly believed, that perception of divine backing was genius. It gave him this aura, made his victories seem inevitable.
Exactly. And then there's the famous dream of Scipio, the one Cicero wrote about. It adds to this idea of Scipio as a chosen figure, guided by fate.
Remind me about that. It's been a while since I read it.
Okay, so the story is, while Scipio is campaigning in Spain, he has this vivid dream. His dead father and grandfather appear. and they reveal his future triumphs. They also warn him about the fleeting nature of earthly glory. True immortality, they say, is in serving Rome, earning a place among the stars.
Wow. So it's a prophecy and a warning all in one. It reinforces that chosen one narrative, but adds this philosophical depth. It's not just about power, it's about duty, about something bigger than himself.
And this dream of Scipio spread all over Rome. He was able to shape his own story, turning a dream into a tool to influence people.
He understood the power of symbols. And then there's the African coincidence, which is just so clever and kind of funny.
Oh yeah, that one. So Scipio's fleet is sailing to Africa, but a storm throws them off course, and they land near the tomb of another famous Roman general.
Most leaders would see that as a bad omen.
Right. But not Scipio. He spins it.
He declares this random landing as a sign from the gods, proof that he's meant to conquer Africa. Talk about confidence.
He was amazing at turning setbacks into PR wins. And then he goes further, taking the name Africanus before he's even won anything. It's bold, audacious, and feeds into that whole man of destiny image.
Like he's making his own destiny happen.
Yeah.
He's not just reacting to events, he's shaping them, controlling how people see him, maybe even how his enemies see him.
That's key. Scipio didn't just play the game, he rewrote the rules. And this goes beyond the gods and storytelling. He also challenged Roman norms in other ways, like his embrace of Greek culture.
We talked about his early interest in Greek ideas and philosophy. That wasn't just a personal thing, it became part of his public image, his leadership style.
A lot of Romans saw Greek culture as a threat, but Scipio saw value in it. He incorporated Greek art, literature, even philosophy into his life. He was a patron of the arts, surrounded himself with Greek thinkers. He was known for being eloquent and refined, which was different from the typical stern Roman general.
He was blurring the lines between Roman strength and Greek sophistication. Did the Roman people like that?
It was controversial. Some saw it as weakness, others found it refreshing, a sign that Roman leaders could change and still be Roman. This blend of cultures really affected how he approached conquest, especially his emphasis on mercy.
Right, the book highlights that Scipio often chose mercy, even with his defeated enemies. That wasn't the norm for Roman generals.
Definitely not. Roman warfare was brutal. Revenge and plunder were common. But Scipio seemed to get that true power wasn't just about crushing your enemies, but turning them into allies.
Like how he treated those Celtiberian princes after he won in Spain. Instead of killing them or holding them hostage, he let them go, treated them with respect, and he earned their loyalty.
And his handling of those Numidian prisoners after Zama.
Exactly. These acts of mercy, some people might have seen them as weakness, but they were smart. Scipio was playing the long game.
He understood that peace and prosperity in the Mediterranean would ultimately benefit Rome more than just creating a bunch of angry enemies.
It's a very modern approach, isn't it? Building bridges, cooperating, even with former enemies. He was thinking beyond the battlefield.
And that extended to his tactics, too. He was an innovator, willing to challenge the traditional Roman way of doing things.
The book describes his capture of New Carthage in Spain. He used the low tide, something that seems like a minor detail, to launch a surprise attack and break through the city defenses.
Brilliant. It showed his ability to think outside the box, combine planning with action.
So we've got this leader who's divinely favored, sophisticated, merciful, and tactically brilliant. He's like the ideal Roman hero, but with a modern twist.
And yet, as we'll see in the last part of our deep dive, even Scipio couldn't escape the challenges of human nature, the burdens of power, and the unpredictable turns of fate.
You know, we've gone through Scipio's victories, the whole image thing he had going on, his leadership, even how he embraced Greek culture. But what gets me is how the life of Scipio Africanus shows the man behind the legend. It's easy to forget that even guys like Scipio had personal stuff to deal with, you know.
Yeah, that's important. To really get him, we need to go beyond the battles in the Senate. Look at his relationships, his values.
One thing that surprised me was how much the book talked about Scipio's idea of love. Not something you usually think about with these tough Roman generals.
Scipio breaks the mold there. Like, remember the story about when he captured Carthage in Spain?
That Celtiberian city?
Yeah. Among the prisoners was this young noblewoman engaged to a Celtiberian chieftain. Scipio, when he found out about her, he didn't ransom her, which is what they usually did. He returned her to her fiancé, even gave them a gift of gold.
It's such a chivalrous act, especially during a brutal war. What do you think his motivation was? Was it genuine compassion? A way to gain favor with the Celtiberians? Or maybe his own idea of romantic love?
It's not totally clear from the book, and I think that's what makes it so interesting. We have to think about his character, how his personal values mixed with his political smarts.
It wasn't just that one incident either. The book also talks about how much he loved his wife, Amelia, and their kids. Their marriage seemed like a real love match, not just some political arrangement.
It shows a side of Scipio that's often forgotten. The personal side, the family man, alongside the hero and conqueror. And we can't forget about Gaius Laelius. That friendship was more than just typical Roman stuff.
They were so close. More than friends, confidants, almost like brothers. They were there for each other through thick and thin.
The book portrays their friendship as a source of strength for Scipio, a safe space, away from all the pressure.
But even with these close relationships, the book suggests that Scipio struggled internally, having to be exceptional all the time, all those expectations. It must have been a lot to carry.
He came from this family obsessed with military glory. He had a legacy to live up to. From day one, he had the weight of Rome's hopes on him, plus the memory of his father and uncle, who both died fighting Hannibal.
That's got to be tough. Inspiring, yeah, but also a huge burden.
And then there's the loneliness that comes with being at the top. All that power, the image of divine favor, it could have isolated him.
It's lonely at the top, right?
Yeah.
Even with people around, maybe no one truly understood what he was going through.
It makes you wonder if those trips to the Temple of Jupiter, maybe they weren't just about the gods. Maybe he also needed some solitude, time to think.
And the dream of Scipio, it shows that even with all his ambition, he knew that fame and power don't last forever.
Yeah, that dream gives us a glimpse into his inner world. A man thinking about big questions, realizing that maybe true fulfillment isn't just about winning battles.
And in the end, he chose to leave Rome, even with all the accusations and political games. It suggests a kind of acceptance, maybe a decision to step away from the constant struggle for power.
Like, he achieved so much, then realized that earthly ambition has its limits. Maybe he wanted a different kind of legacy, one of wisdom and reflection.
So, as we wrap up our deep dive into the life of Scipio Africanus, a tapestry of power and relationships, what have we learned? What's the big takeaway from this fascinating guy?
The book makes it clear. Scipio wasn't just a great general. He was a visionary leader. He knew how to shape people's perceptions, build relationships, and balance personal goals with public duty. He didn't just let things happen, he shaped his own reality. And that's a story that still captivates us today.
He was full of contradictions, a mix of Roman tradition and Greek thinking, a warrior who valued mercy, a driven leader who ultimately chose to walk away from it all. His life gives us so much to think about: leadership, ambition, the power of myth and legend. And with that, we end our deep dive. Thanks for joining us.